Just like that, the second week of the NFL season is already over, and it's time to recap it. In this video, I will give you 7 things you should know from NFL Week 2. By the way, this is the Rational Football League show where we give rational takes for rational football fans. All right, let's go ahead and let's jump in. This is no surprise, but the Saints are the hottest team in football right now. The Saints beat the Cowboys last week 44-19, which also snapped the Cowboys' 16-game home win streak in the regular season. The Saints have outscored their opponents by 62 points so far this season. That's an insane point differential after only 2 weeks. So that begs the question, what changed from last season? The answer might be as simple as the newly hired offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. Kubiak was the former passing game specialist for the 49ers in 2023. And he has spent 10 years in the NFL. He has basically simplified the Saints offense, all while implementing and calling plays that kind of work off each other. It's truly like watching poetry in motion, and it has Derek Carr dancing like Michael Jackson. The Bryce Young experiment in Carolina might be over already. This is because the Panthers have already benched second-year quarterback and former first overall draft pick Bryce Young. Head coach Dave Canales stated that Bryce Young is still the starter, but that's kind of hard to believe because why would you bench your starter if your starter is truly your starter? That doesn't really make much sense. And I don't remember many scenarios when a team benched their starting quarterback and that same quarterback came to find success with that team that benched him. So with that being said, the Bryce Young era in Carolina might be over only after a season and 2 games. And you may be asking yourself, why was Bryce Young benched after 2 games? So these stats might shed some light on that. Bryce Young has thrown for a total of 245 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions and 67 dropbacks during the first 2 weeks of the season. According to PFF, he has a passing rate of 31.8, which is the lowest grade out of all qualifying quarterbacks. PFF also cites that Bryce Young has the second highest pressure to sack percentage out of all qualifying quarterbacks, and that percentage is 31.6%. And that metric really tells us the percentage of pressures that result into sacks. And here's the real kicker. Bryce Young is responsible for 43% of pass pressure that he has been feeling, which is the highest mark out of all qualifying quarterbacks. So in summary, he's not making explosive plays, he's turning over the ball, and he's causing unnecessary pressures and sacks by either not processing the field, trying to extend plays we don't really need to, not throwing the ball away, and just really being detrimental to the Carolina Panthers offense. And this is why they are turning to Andy Dalton to start for them. And I would not be that surprised if Bryce Young is dealt by the trade deadline. Because again, you don't just keep a former first overall pick into the third week after playing 2 games this season on your bench just for learning experience. That does not make sense. Sure, can he come back and do well? Yeah, but why would you turn away from your young quarterback like that if you had some belief that you were done with that quarterback? Really weird stuff in Carolina, right? The young receivers have finally arrived. The next crop of wide receiver stars have made their impacts felt last Sunday. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Jackson Smith-Njigba finally arrived onto the scene, and it took, JSN a little bit longer than Marvin Harrison Jr., which is not JSN's fault by any means, and I think a lot of fans were just being impatient with Marvin Harrison Jr., considering that this was his second game of his NFL career. And, he only had 4 yards the first week. So I think it felt like forever that we were waiting for Marvin Harrison Jr. to really pop off. And he finally did. And I say finally loosely again. This is only his second game in the NFL. But it was great seeing these guys just do extremely well in the second week of the season. Marvin Harrison Jr. ended up hauling 4 catches on 8 targets for 130 receiving yards and scored 2 touchdowns against the LA Rams. Jackson Smith and Jigma caught 12 passes on 16 targets. That's insane opportunity right there. 16 targets, wow, for 117 yards against the New England Patriots. And, if you have JSN on your fantasy team or you are a sports bettor, I'm looking at Marvin Harrison Jr. too for stuff like that. I have him on my own fantasy team, but man, 16 targets for JSN, that's insane volume right there. That is insane. So if you don't have him, maybe you can try to get him somehow. Or again, if you're a sports bettor, like I might be betting on his receptions line for at least this upcoming week to see what happens. But 16 targets, he's getting a lot of action there. The Chicago Bears offensive line is not good. The whole country witnessed the pure horror that is the Chicago Bears offensive line against the Houston Texans on Sunday Night Football. Former first overall pick Caleb Williams was sacked 7 times on 47 dropbacks, and he was under pressure on 43% of his dropbacks, where he went 4 for 12 for only 33 passing yards, and he threw 2 interceptions while under pressure. However, when he was kept clean in the pocket, Williams completed 19 of 25 passes and threw for 141 yards. However, the Chicago Bears offensive line failed to keep Caleb Williams clean, as we can see from that Sunday night game. In fact, and according to PFF, the Chicago Bears O-line was responsible for allowing pressure on 84% of Williams' dropbacks. So he was pressured, just to recap, on 43% of his dropbacks, so almost half. He was almost under pressure almost every time he threw the ball, which is crazy. At least half the time he threw the football. And the O-line was responsible for 84% of the pressures that he felt on 43% of his dropbacks. So to put plainly, the O-line were not doing their job well. And the kind of odd thing is like the blame can be evenly distributed amongst like the starting 5. Like there wasn't one single player that did a whole lot worse or better than the others. But the right side of the offensive line struggled more than the left. I'm not really quite sure. All I know is the Chicago Bears offense had a lot of hype coming into this season. And if the O-line is the reason why this offense does not reach its full potential, then that is a really big miss by Ryan Poles and his staff. I mean, come on. The O-line had to be priority 1. Does not matter how many stars you have at wide receiver or at running back if your quarterback can't throw the ball. If your quarterback is getting pressured at 43% of his dropbacks, that is absolutely not winning football, and you can't really develop a young quarterback like that. Justin Jefferson is still wide receiver 1. It simply does not matter who's throwing the football. Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the NFL. Jefferson had 4 receptions on 7 targets for 133 yards and a touchdown against the 49ers, including this 97-yard touchdown from Sam Darnold. I mean, does anything else need to be said about Justin Jefferson? No, let's just move on. The Rams might be in early trouble. The LA Rams might find themselves in a steep hole over the next few weeks. After dropping games to the Lions and to the Cardinals, the Rams are 0-2, and they are facing a heavy dosage of the injury bug. Puka is on the IR with a knee injury, and fellow star Cooper Kupp is also a candidate to land on the IR with an ankle injury. And they have a laundry list of players that are already on the IR right now. Some names are, offensive lineman KT Leviston, Joe Noteboom, am I saying that name right? Jonah Jackson hurt his shoulder on Sunday, and he might be on the IR. And they have a good amount of guys on defense right now. Like John Johnson just got hurt too, or something like that. So after starting 0-2, it's really the offensive stuff. They're missing their 2 star receivers. Puka's already on the IR, and he might even miss up to like 6 weeks, I read. And, with Cooper Kupp maybe going on the IR, that's a guaranteed 4 games miss at least. So the Rams might find themselves in a steep hole as we kind of end the first quarter of the season here soon. Last but not least, CJ Stroud is definitely a top 8 quarterback. I don't know how anyone could debate that Stroud is not a top 8 quarterback right now. I mean, he's truly unreal. There's no other way to put it. The reigning offensive rookie of the year went 23 for 36, 260 yards, and threw a touchdown against a very stout Chicago Bears defense. But look at this clip right here.
Defensive start so far for Stroud. Pressure coming from the edge. He gets away from Kyler Gordon. On the run. Hit as he complete.
How do you defend that? You simply can't. And he does things that are only a few guys in the NFL can actually do. And those are my 7 takeaways from NFL Week 2. Let me know, what did I miss? What would you add on to this list? Let's go ahead. Tell me down below in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to sub to the channel, please. It helps us out a ton. I'm Brendyn with the Rational Football League Show, and we'll see you in the next one.